All right, well, we're going to get started. This is the kickoff to the 2020-21 school year budget process. We're moving into a brand new decade, and we're going to talk about the rollover budget and what it is for Eaton and all schools. So for tonight's discussion, next slide, please.
Oh,
Lucinda?
sorry. Trying to get down.
We're going to talk about what is a rollover budget, the purpose of doing a rollover budget, and we're going to review some of the budget adoption principles. We're going to talk about current projections and assumptions for the revenues and the expenditures, the implication of the 2021 rollover budget, budgeting options, and the timeline.
It's there. Now we're on. Now he's on.
Yeah, we got
I had to unmute him.
Okay. I'm just
So
gonna
you
stay.
ready? Next slide.
Yep.
Keyboard works now.
What is a rollover budget? It's a comparison of our current
She is
revenues
muted.
today.
Don't touch it.
to
Yeah.
what known expenditures we would have
Yeah.
next
No,
year.
we're good.
They would increase by some
Sorry.
of the known trending and contractual costs. And the reason we compare it to today's numbers is so that we say, if we can get another penny in revenue, what could our budget sustain? Of course, we always have to have a cost neutral budget. Next slide. Back one. Okay. So this is a big technical explanation of a definition of a rollover budget. And it's just a strategic way to look at our potential, at our calculated future costs and compare them to our current revenues. And we project costs with our current staffing and expenditures trended by the contract increases.
Is it working?
We updated expenditures to the known, like the contractual cost increases. That would be things like health insurance, the ERS, the TRS that we'll talk about a little later. And we keep our revenue streams at the same money because we want to know how much revenue do we have to generate to keep things status quo, or do we already have enough revenue for next year's known expenditures? And maybe there's some new initiatives that the Board of Education would like to set forth as a community. So it's really a feasibility study. That's the big thing of if we know these expenses are going up and we know our revenues are staying the same, where does that leave us? So the purpose of the rollover budget is to establish a baseline for the budget. So we know what the costs are going to be. And we have opportunities for looking for new initiatives, as I said. And the biggest key factor for a school district is that on January 30th,
Okay, that's what happened when he took his headset off.
I have no idea. On January 30th, that's the latest that we'll hear from Governor Cuomo how much he's going to allot for state aid. We'll get state aid runs. That's when we'll really, after that point, start to look at revenues, because then we'll have some ideas of where we can project our costs are going to grow to, so that we can see how close are we getting between our anticipated expenditures and our now anticipated revenues. The key is, I started developing the budget in November, more than 18 months in advance of the end of next school year. So it's a projection that has a lot of ebb and flow as we go through the year. So some of the principles are, we want to fulfill the district's mission statement. We're not just here to willy-nilly spend money. There is an actual mission and goals for this district. The Board of Education has tasked the superintendent with containing taxes because taxpayers want to know that the money is being used responsibly. We want to position our budget so that as we have surpluses, hopefully, at the end of each budget year, we can put those in savings so that we can plan on future things like capital projects, replacing buses. We can replace the technology that we received under the Smart Schools Bond Act So there's a lot that goes into protecting the district for the future, not to mention that some of the money is put aside in reserves for the employee retirement system and the teacher retirement system. So if their costs spike, the district can afford to not have a massive layoff
You could hear it this way at least.
because there's a spike in a known area. So the prudent use of reserves is really garners around how to make our savings work for us in the future to contain the taxes and to give the students what they're needing for their education.
And just have it on speaker for her, for him.
So again, for the rollover budget, the revenues are set at the prior year level. We just received yesterday the announcement that the CPI index for the calculation for the property tax cap, that old anomaly that was set 2%, well, 2% this year is 1.81%, and that's all the higher that we can raise the taxes this year. So for this examples and for these numbers, we have not yet incorporated the tax cap calculation because the numbers were just released yesterday. And again, that wouldn't be the baseline that we talked about of using last year's revenues. So as we move on, we want to look at the detail of the revenues. And so we're going to go through the line items. Property taxes are the money that is received from the taxpayers. That's the total levy that we put out. So just a quick little discussion about the levy. The levy is the maximum amount of taxes we're going to collect. But if a new house goes up next door to you, that doesn't mean that house increases the total levy. It just changes the tax rate for everyone in that town. So as you can see, there is no change in this projection. Our state aid, that's what we get from New York State for things like our BOCES, our transportation, our foundation aid. Those are the things that are supposed to help our district to remain on par with other districts regardless of our socioeconomic status. And we, again, are not seeing an increase yet. Federal aid is our Medicaid dollars that is used to offset the related service costs for our high-needs students. Some students receive OT and PT while they're in school and speech, and those are Medicaid services. Years ago, that was put into school districts as a mandate because, of course, where are the students 5 days a week during the day? They're in the schools. So that's why they put that as a mandate to the school districts, and we receive some federal Medicaid dollars for that. The miscellaneous is things like the sales tax that Erie County shares with us. It is the billings that we do for other districts when we bring their special education students into our district. So for example, we might have a class that's at eight students, one teacher, one aide, and we might only have 5 even students that need that class. But if we can tuition in 2 or 3 other students, that helps lower the cost for the Eaton taxpayers for that class. And so that's a good thing. That's part of our miscellaneous. And it's right down to things like when you pay for your fitness center. Anyone who's using our fitness center, you pay for your membership, the ones that pay. It's the lost book that kids pay money for. It's all those things rolled up so you can see some of them are more sizable than others. Then we have interfund transfers, and these are funds that we have in our debt service fund. Now, how we're set up is we have different funds for different areas of work in the district. So our debt service fund has some money that's left over from a capital project. If there's cash left over, it goes in the debt service fund, and it's used to pay down that debt payment in the future. And the debt service, of course, is the mortgage payments we pay when we are working on the buildings and we're upgrading and things like that. Then we have appropriated fund balance, and that's the funds that are available to the district. That's the owner's equity, that's the part of the accounting equation that it's things that we own, it's cash, things like that. And the Board of Education will say, let's put some of that towards next year's budget so that we don't have to raise taxes by that much. And you can see that last year it was $729,000 that the Board of Education said, we'll keep the levy that much lower and we'll use appropriated fund balance. Reserves, that's the use of things now for the budgetary purpose. The reserves that we're utilizing here are, we have a capital reserve for buses and maintenance equipment. We use that when we replace our buses. We also have a technology reserve that this will be the first time we can use to help offset. Both of those items, taxpayers get to come and say they're a separate proposition, whether or not we can use those reserves that they set up for us, and we've set money aside in prior years to use. So those are at 1.2 million. So we wind up at the $31,353,121 that we had last year. We will have again this year in the rollover budget for revenue, because of course we've spoken many times how that's not moving forward. Now we're going to talk about the expenditure assumptions on the next slide. So contractually, and for staff that has come on that maybe was necessary for one reason or another, our salaries are going to go up 3.87%. Our employee retirement system, ERS, is a 2.23% increase in the dollars. Our teacher retirement system, TRS, is 1.99% increase. Our health insurance, our early projections are we're going to be going up 3.5% on health insurance. Utilities, right now we're budgeting for a 5% increase, and those numbers will become more firm as we go through the budgetary process. Our consultant will be giving us numbers at the end of the month to see where they feel we will be by the guarantees they've gotten for the entire consortium, so just trying to save money. Our BOCES typically goes up right around 3% a year, trending forward, because of course they are only paid by the districts that are component districts, and their employees and their costs, same as our salaries and our retirement and healthcare expenses, keep edging up as well. Charter school tuition, it's 100% increase this year, and that's because this year we have 2 students who we didn't budget for, who enrolled into charter school. It's a parent's decision, and we're mandated by law to pay so much money to the charter schools. So this year's budget will see 100% increase in that line item. So these are the predictable expenditures. We will have more as we go through the budget process and as we go through living the budget. And of course, we have to make sure there's enough in the budget for the unknowns, because we will be moving forward and things will be happening as we go the next 18 months. So our next slide is going to show us the expenditures. So looking at the first column tells the category of expenditures, and I'll go through those in a minute. You can see the 1920 approved budget and the rollover projections based on the assumptions that I said before, and then the percentage of change by category. So our general support, that is the Board of Education costs, not that they get a salary, but again, there are costs and legal fees and things that the board needs to have the correct information. And then there is the superintendent's office, there's the finance office, there's buildings and grounds, there's everything from legal fees to mailing that are all make up that $3.8 million in the rollover budget, which is 3.09% higher than last year's. You can already see that when you start to look at this analysis, like the revenue's flat, because we need to figure out how much we're going to need in revenues, because of course everyone wants to be prudent in containing taxes, so you want to make sure that you're not asking, even though the tax cap may be this number, if you don't need that much, you may not ask for it. So we want to make sure that we're being cost conscious when we look at this. So then we go down to the instructional, and that is all your teachers and all the buildings, and that's where you want to see your increases. And and that's going to 16.2 million, up 3.18% from last year's budget. Transportation is going to 2.2, almost 2.3 million, a 3.74% increase. Some of those increases are buses, some of the increases are salaries. We have had increased transportation as we've had to send children to private placements. Some of those you think, well, then why do we send them to private places? Some of those are a decision made for the best, least restrictive environment made between the district and the parents. So the child is getting the best education they can get as well. Then we have civic activities. Civic activities are some of the salaries that we use when somebody rents our buildings. We may have maintenance people. Well, even though I may get revenue in for that, I still have to budget for the expense somewhere. I won't have any place to pay it. And it also includes the fitness center. Right now, the majority of this increase is the increase that we will be seeing December 31st, 2020, as minimum wage goes up yet again, another 70 cents per hour. Then we're going to look at the employee benefits, and we talked about the ERS, the TRS, and the health insurance. We're all going up. Well, that becomes 2.5 million or 9.34% increase. The next one I kind of want to explain a little because it's called debt service. And everybody's like, well, what is debt service? We don't go to debtor's princes. Debt service is the mortgage that we pay, that we take out in the form of bonds when we do capital projects to improve the building. The beauty of our mortgage payments and our debt service in the system is we get money back from New York State as capital project aid for everything we do. So if we just did it with local funds, our budget would be unsustainable. But the state realizes that, so they help out with that. So our debt service is our mortgage payment, and it's actually going down a little bit because our energy performance contract will be paid off this school year. And so that's why you're seeing a little drop. Then we have what's called interfund transfers. The words are an accounting term. What they mean is the general fund supports $100,000 a year for a capital outlay to do some work where we will generate our state aid back on those funds. And so that's 100,000 of it. And then we have money that will go out to support the cafeteria and other areas that are not contained within the general fund budget, but that support it. So our total expenditures are going up 3.7% just on our known calculations of $32.5 million, up from $31.3 million last year. So now we're going to talk about the implications. So we're going to put it all together because seeing is believing. So our revenues are going to stay right now at $3.3 million. Our expenditures are going to go up to $32.5 million, which means that we have $1,160,362 to come up with to balance this budget because we're mandated to have a balanced budget. Remembering that these cost projections are 18 months in advance, I can't come back and say, oops, I goofed and add money. So we have to make sure we have a responsible number that we can work through for the next fiscal year. So now we're going to talk on the next slide about the budgeting options. We could do some expenditure reductions. We will be analyzing faculty and staff. We will be looking for potential retirements and other reductions that can occur. We will be looking for, will our revenues increase? Generally speaking, we'll be looking at the sales tax aid, what is it projected to go up or down? We'll be looking at state aid, what are the projections for that? And ultimately, the Board of Education, once the tax cap has been calculated for them, they'll be looking at what kind of an increase they feel is warranted to support the budget from the taxpayers. In doing so, they're going to look and say, okay, but we're going to buy 2 more buses this year because we're still not getting to our goal of turning over the buses. So instead of going to the taxpayers, we have this nice little capital reserve that we set aside, and we're going to go to that capital reserve and use that and not increase taxes. That's the purpose of the district reserves. And then realistically, we're going to use a combination of everything to get the most fiscally responsible budget for the taxpayers we can. So then we're going to look at the budget timeline on the next slide. So then,
I'm trying. God, it didn't go. There we go.
okay, so what will happen is throughout this budget process, there will be items that occur within the Board of Education meeting. Those will be principals, directors, they will be coming to the Board of Education and they will be saying, this is my proposed budget for next year. And so there will be some of those, and then there will be, for example, on February 12th, there will be a community forum, which will be held over in the cafeteria of this building, where we'll sit down and we'll ask the community for their input and feedback. And then after that, when we go into the board meeting, there will be more presentations, because of course there won't be any time for receiving the feedback to move forward to see if these brainstorming ideas can be implemented and if they are cost effective, because that's what we're always looking for. So then we'll go through, and on March 18th, there will be scenarios at that community forum that will be presented to the Board of Education, so that when they have to adopt the budget on April 21st, they know that if the governor's funds, which don't come out, the legislative funds come out on March 31st. So they will have to know, if we got this in state aid, what else do we have to do? Where do we go with this budget? So they're going to have scenarios so that they have time to analyze it, so that they're not put under pressure, because there's a short period of time from when the legislative final numbers are received by the district and when they have to go out and put a budget adoption forward. May 5th will be the community presentation of the budget that they will vote on May 19th. So does anyone have any questions? Thank you all for being concerned citizens.